स्वाहा इदमग्नये इदं नमः ॐ वर्वायवे स्वाहा इदं वायवे इदं नमः ॐ स्वरादित्याय स्वाहा इदमादित्याय इदं नमः ॐ भूर्भुवस्वरग्निर्वादित्येभ्यः स्वाहा ॐ यदस्य कर्मणोदरीरिचं यद्वानिम्नं यहाकरम् अग्निशस्कृद्विद्या सर्वं शिष्टं सुहृतं करोतु मे अग्नेशिष्टकृते सहुतौ ते सर्वप्रायश्चित्ताहुतीनां कामानां समदत्ये सर्वान्नः कामान्त समदय्या स्वाहा ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः अग्निर्षि पौमान्नः पञ्चजन्या पुरोहिता तमिमहे महगयं स्वाहा इदमग्नये पुमनय इदं नमः नमो भवति विश्वसयाशसोय विष्णौ अवैश्वम्नो वरुणं रगारो भीमिकं सूर्णैः स्वाहा तमी ब्रह्मणावन्मांशता शास्ते जमानो हविर्विधि अहेरमानो वरुणैवो दुरुषं समाना आयुः किं जातवेदसौ शिवो भवत्मद्यनः स्वाहा और तीसरा वाक्य है धीर नः प्रचोदयात् मतलब धीर मतलब दिव्य ज्ञान को इस नॉलेज को मैं विचार करके बैठा हूँ बैठी हूँ योग मतलब आप ना मतलब हमारे प्रचोदयात् मतलब पवित्र करना तो ये पिता परमात्मा नाम प्राणदाता हैं उद्धारता हैं
यजमान है वो अब जा सकते हैं अपने स्थान को प्राप्त कर बैठ सकते हैं जिससे हम आगे की कार्रवाई कोई यहाँ से पेश करें।
We have gathered here this afternoon, this evening rather, to pay our tributes, respects and admiration to the late Mr. Surendra Prasad, who died on 5th July 2014. And also remember and reminisce his extraordinary journey from Saru, Latoka to Sydney, Australia.
मुझे हमारे वाइस प्रेसिडेंट जी ने कहा है कि आपके लिए 5 मिनट है बोलने का, तो मैं अवश्य कोशिश करूंगा कि 5 मिनट पे मेरा जो ये छोटा सा भाषण है उसको मैं खत्म कर दूं। दोस्तों, आज मैं अपना जो प्रवचन है शुरू करता हूँ, रामायण के एक चौपाई है उसी से शुरुआत करता हूँ। रामायण में जब राजा दशरथ गुजर जाते हैं तो श्री रामचंद्र जी और भरत का कन्वर्सेशन होता है, तो उसमें भरत जी बहुत व्याकुल हो जाते हैं और कहते हैं कि ना मेरे पिता गुजर गया है। तो उस समय मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम श्री राम एक बहुत सुंदर विषय से समझाते हैं भरत को, और वो चौपाई में ऐसा है कि कहूँ भरत भावी प्रभव बिलख क्यों मुनिनाथ हानि लाभ जन्म मरण जस अबजस इस विधि के हाथ कि जो जीवन है, लोग जन्म होते हैं मरते हैं, ये ईश्वर के हाथ में है और हानि लाभ। और उसके उपरांत एक और पोएम में आया है कि आएंगे सो जाएंगे राजा रंग फकीर, सबका मृत्यु होगा। अभी आपको पता होगा कि हमारे नेल्सन मंडेला जी हमारे साथ नहीं है, वो चले गए। जितने भी लोग आएंगे इस संसार में जन्म लेंगे, उसका मृत्यु निश्चय है। थोड़े से एग्जाम्पल्स है जो मैं आपके समझ में रखने की कोशिश करूंगा। मिस्टर प्रसाद 1995 में आर्य प्रतिनिधि सभा ऑस्ट्रेलिया को ज्वाइन किया। उसके बीच में वो खासकर सिडनी आर्य समाज के मेंबर थे, और उसके उपरांत जब यहाँ पर हमारा आर्य प्रतिनिधि सभा ऑस्ट्रेलिया का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बना, तो उस समय मिस्टर प्रसाद ने हमको बहुत अपना जो एक्सपर्टीज था कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनाने में, मिस्टर प्रसाद ने हम लोगों को बहुत भारी मदद किया कि हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन राइट हो, कि हम सही दिशा पर चले। और दोस्तों, जब भी कभी यहाँ पर दीपावली हो, होली हो, किसी प्रकार से कोई भी फंक्शन हो, मिस्टर प्रसाद हमेशा यहाँ, मिसेस प्रसाद आपके साथ आते रहते हैं। और उसके उपरांत मिस्टर प्रसाद जो हमारे पैटर्न थे, काफी दिन और आर्य प्रदेश सभा ऑस्ट्रेलिया के पैटर्न थे। और आज से लगभग 10 साल पहले जब मैंने यहाँ का सेक्रेटरी का पदवी लिया, तो उस समय से मेरा मिस्टर प्रसाद का जो संबंध था वो बहुत अच्छा हुआ। मैंने गहराई में देखा उसको, और मैं उसको समझ सका कि वो क्या व्यक्ति है, वो क्या चाहता है, वो कैसे हम कैसे समाज चलाएं ना। मैंने हमने समझा उसको। भाइयों बहनों, वैसे तो अभी आपके समझ में बहुत और प्रवचन करता आएंगे जिसको मिस्टर प्रसाद के बारे में बहुत कुछ मालूम है, क्योंकि वो फिजी में भी काफी काम किया है। लेकिन मैं मिस्टर प्रसाद को 10 साल से जानता था, तो मेरा जो एक्सपीरियंस है वो मैंने आपको समझ में रखा है। और हम आर्य प्रदेश ऑस्ट्रेलिया, हम हमेशा उसको याद रखेंगे। इट इज़ अ वेरी ग्रेट लॉस टू अस। और जब भी हम बैठेंगे मिस्टर प्रसाद को हमेशा याद करते रहेंगे। और मुझे इतना बोलना है, आप सभी को मेरा नमस्ते।
Mr. Pramod Rai, Mrs. Suma Prasad, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell about Surendra Prasad as I know him, as a legal practitioner, as a friend, as a fellow parliamentarian, and as I know him in other aspects of life. We addressed each other by first name. So with your permission, Pramod, I'll strike a note of informality. Surendra was one of those persons who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. To the best of my knowledge, he never experienced poverty or any particular hardship throughout his life. In September 1959, in 1959, I spent 2 months in Wellington. In fact, 1 month. December 1959 and January 1960. Surendra was a law student at the University of Wellington at that time. And when I went to Wellington, I was accommodated by a number of PhD students. One day, Ram Vilas suggested or invited me to join other students to go to the place of Surendra Prasad. And 5 of us, including Jairam Reddy and Girmit Lal, landed on his doorsteps. Those days, 4 or 5 students shared a flat to minimize costs. Surendra Prasad was living in a cozy flat all on his own. We were received with a very cordial welcome. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the prime of our youth, and the party started. Savories, snacks, and then liquor flowed freely. After some time, one of the friends asked Jairam to give a song, and he sang in a melodious voice. Then Surendra Prasad was pressured into giving a song. In late 50s, Pankaj Malik, Kayal Saigo, Sursar, Jagmohan were the kings of Indian music. And to my surprise, Surendra Prasad, in his deep, rich, captivating voice, sang a very popular song, "Rom mein sagar ke kinare sagar hansi udaye." I do not know how many of you, ladies and gentlemen, have had the opportunity of hearing Mr. Surendra Prasad sing. After that, we went to our respective homes. So that was my first meeting with Surendra Prasad. Surendra was choosy about his company. There was a certain reserve about him, but he was at his best when he opened up. That is when he showed his wide knowledge of worldly affairs, his subtle sense of humor, and the lighter side of personality. I began legal practice in Nandi in the beginning of 1966. By then, Surendra had already established a successful legal practice in Lautoka city. As a lawyer, he was a formidable opponent and always had the interest of his client at his heart. To him, interest of his clients was of paramount importance. Surendra Prasad believed in class. He was always immaculately dressed, drove classy cars. He was thorough in his work, and his office was an example of neatness and efficiency. Uma and Surendra owned a palatial home in an elite area with a panoramic view of Lautoka Harbour. His hosts were treated with vintage wine followed by sumptuous dinner. I had the taste of his hospitality on 2 occasions. But ladies and gentlemen, let me hasten to add that Surendra had no difficulty in coming to the level of the ordinary man. He could be with them, one of them, with equal ease. Such was the greatness of the man. Needless to say that the power, the inspiration behind Surendra's success was his wife, Uma Prasad. She was the love of his life, always present to support him, encourage him, inspire him, and work shoulder to shoulder in all his endeavors. Surendra first entered politics necessitated by the resignation of late Mr. R.D. Patel. He successfully contested the by-election, followed by general election, in which again he was successful. The caucus of NFP unanimously elected him to be the Speaker, a chair he did not occupy because of the government's political coup that deprived our party from governing. We often blame that there was dispute in the party, but the fact remains that that was the first coup. Surendra had the foresight to see the facade of democracy in the country and wiped his hands completely off from politics. Thereafter, he was appointed a first-class magistrate, and his presence added dignity to the bench. He served as a councillor for Lautoka City Council and was appointed arbitrator to solve dispute between different parties. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed fitting that your organization this evening has organized a function in his honor, in his remembrance. For Surendra Prasad gave unparalleled and invaluable service to the Arya Samaj Sanstha. There's a passage in Ramayana that I'm very fond of, and I invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to read it. On King Dasratha's death, Vasishtha, the spiritual family guru, explained to Bharat the philosophy of death. Vasishtha said that we should mourn for those people who fail to discharge their duties, not those that have done their duties. In fact, we should rejoice at the death of those that have completed their duties. And Surendra Prasad, ladies and gentlemen, was one of those persons who discharged his duties in all aspects of life. As a father, as a husband, as a citizen. Therefore, Umay and his children and his friends should be very proud to have had such a person in our midst. A good father, a good husband, a good citizen, a good friend, and a person who discharged his duties in all walks of life. Naturally, we are all proud of him. Ladies and gentlemen, I have known Surendra for more than 5 decades. And whatever I have said has been my personal experience, my personal observation of the man. I was unable to attend his funeral and I sent my message through the other Sharma to be conveyed to Uma, which he did. Then Pramod, thank you for giving me this opportunity to say something on his behalf. I'm grateful.
Mr. Surendra Prasad was a distinguished lawyer, magistrate, politician, legislator, educationalist, local body administrator, and scholar of the Fiji Indian Diaspora. He was the grandson of an indentured worker, Shri Surendra Girmit, who arrived in Fiji from Uttar Pradesh, India under the indenture system in 1905. He was born at Latoka, Fiji on 5th September 1932 and received his primary and secondary school education in Latoka. That's at the Natambua High School. After completing his senior Cambridge examination in 1949, he joined the Australian oil giant, the Vacuum Oil Company, which is now Mobil Oil, and worked there from 1950 to 56 as the chief clerk and later as a depot superintendent in the Latoka office. He proceeded to New Zealand for further studies in 1957 and enrolled in the Victoria University of Wellington. In 1963, he was admitted as a solicitor of the Supreme Court of New Zealand. He then joined the Wellington legal firm of Hatfield, Peacock and Tribe as a staff solicitor. Whilst at the university, Mr. Prasad took keen interest in debating and oratory and won a number of trophies and awards. He returned to Fiji after an absence of about 9 years in October 1965 and was admitted as a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Fiji in October 1965. He practiced on his own account as a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Fiji at Latoka for 22 years from 1965 to 1987. In 1987, he was appointed a resident magistrate by the Legal and Judicial Services Commission of Fiji, and he served as such for 6.5 years. He was also the visiting magistrate for the Natambua prison from 1988 to 1994.
Mrs. Surendra Prasad and family. And I also acknowledge the presence of Mr. Harish Sharma here as one of our elder citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, I am indeed honoured and privileged to have been asked by Mr. Pramod Rai to say a few words on this occasion. I was initially asked to speak at the funeral service, but due to time constraints on the day, I was allowed 3 minutes, and I respectfully declined that offer because I thought 3 minutes would not do justice to Mr. Prasad. I'm pleased that today the Arya Samaj community here in Sydney have organized such a day that we may pay tribute to a man of Mr. Prasad's stature. This evening, ladies and gentlemen, I pay my respect to a gentleman who I had known for quite a number of years, because memories, ladies and gentlemen, of the likes of people that we love, people that we hold in high esteem, people like Mr. Prasad, just do not disappear. They last a lifetime, and they remind us whenever we think of him. As you've heard this evening, Mr. Prasad was born and raised in the early 1930s, in what I believe I can best describe as those from that in-between generation, a generation with one foot firmly entrenched in the pre-World War II era, with the other foot placed, I believe, unsteadily in the early 50s, the early 1960s, particularly when he went abroad to study in New Zealand. One can well imagine the challenging times for Indian parents in Fiji at that time, especially when they wanted to educate their children abroad. I have one thing in common with Mr. Prasad. We both graduated from Victoria University in Wellington, New Zealand. Mr. Prasad, though, finished his law degree in 1964 and returned to Lautoka, where he practiced law, as you've heard, for some 22 years. I first knew Mr. Surendra Prasad through my late father, Mr. Ravindra Singh. Mr. and Mrs. Prasad and we were neighbours at Kiwi Place in Simla, Lautoka. There were a number of similarities between the two gentlemen. Both my father and Mr. Prasad were long-time Lautoka citizens, and both had this love and affinity for the sugar city. They both served their time in the Lautoka City Council, and during their tenure as councillors, the municipal government was something so quite different to what it is today. Like my father, Mr. Prasad also became the Lord Mayor of Lautoka, and under his leadership, Lautoka saw many developments, and you've heard of them this evening. Mr. Prasad, as you've heard Mr. Sharma acknowledge this evening, was a well-respected lawyer, and his dedication to the legal fraternity saw him being elevated to the esteemed position of being a first-class magistrate. Another similarity between my father and Mr. Prasad was that they were both politicians, having won a few battles and lost a few as well. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the hallmarks of a human being is the service one performs unselfishly. And Mr. Prasad was second to none when it came to performing services. In 1972, he was the founding chairman of the Pandit Vishnu Deo Memorial School and was also the General Secretary of the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha of Fiji, and later on became the National Secretary, the National President. You've heard this evening that he was an educationalist. Whenever I met Mr. Prasad, I always found him to have that unique smile that only he had. He was always soft-spoken, and despite his seniority, he gave respect to the young and the old. When Mr. Prasad migrated to Australia, he continued his passion for law and worked in Parramatta as a lawyer for a while. When I graduated with an LLB degree, and shortly thereafter when he met me, he was so genuinely happy at my achievement. There were many times that he would phone and discuss the political situation back home with me, because I used to, in those days, do a lot of political interviews for our Hindi radio show in Sydney. We always used to meet during the Arya Samaj functions, and I would always enjoy speaking to him on any number of subjects. Mr. Prasad was always someone I could discuss a legal issue. I remember one day when I spoke to him and told him that I was in a dilemma. I had been given a choice of going back to Fiji to accept a post. He listened quite intently, and then in his usual soft voice told me that my place was here, and that I should make my life here and don't ever think of going back. Because he said, what are you going to go back to? On a personal note, it was a very proud day when this Lotoka born and bred Babuji was bestowed the Arya Ratna. It was an award truly deserving of the gentleman. In Australia, Mr. and Mrs. Prasad always kept in touch with my mother, and they would speak on the phone and meet at functions. Mum would always give me his best wishes. She'd make a point of phoning me and telling me that. It was so pleasing to note that despite migrating to Australia, Mr. and Mrs. Prasad did not forget their friends. Ladies and gentlemen, the wise have said that the Atma is immortal, and that the phenomenon of death is merely the separation of the astral body from the physical body. The 5 elements of which the body is composed return to their source. Our scriptures teach us that just as pilgrims unite and separate at a public inn, so also fathers, mothers, sons, brothers, wives, and relations unite and separate in this world. He who thus understands the nature of the body and all human relationships based upon it will derive strength to bear the loss of our dear ones. Ladies and gentlemen, in the divine plan, one day each union must end with separation. Ladies and gentlemen, Valmiki Ramayana on the subject of death says, just as a tidal wave brings together 2 logs in a boundless ocean, and another wave separates them, even so wives and children, relatives and wealth hold us and separate themselves to meet no more. Not one can avoid the common lot of all. The separation of these is certain in death. If I may just take another moment, ladies and gentlemen, the Mahabharata says, wondrous indeed is this world, where one who was here yesterday may not be found today. Birth is preyed upon by death, brilliant youth by old age. Health of people is destroyed by hundreds of varied ailments of the body and mind. Life, ladies and gentlemen, is insecure as a drop of water attached to the edge of a lotus leaf and dispersed by the wind. We cannot be certain of living the next moment. Days and nights are ceaselessly running, bearing away in their current the periods of life of all human beings. Life currents of river These flow ceaselessly without ever turning back. Birth and death are playing like Maya. He who is born begins to die. He who dies begins to live. Life is death, and death is life. Birth and death are merely doors of entry and exit on the stage of this world. The human body is the house. We imagine that Vidhata's grants to the embodied soul a lease of plus minus 100 years to occupy this house, with an escape clause, ladies and gentlemen, to vacate at short notice. Change of dwelling place is what we call death. In the Gita, chapter 2, verse 30, the Lord says, "This is the indweller in the body of everyone, is ever indestructible. Therefore you should not grieve for any feature or any creature." Good people, today we have gathered here to pay tribute to a wonderful son of Fiji, a son who dedicated his life to the good of all mankind, and who inherited and imparted his knowledge to young and old. Mr. Surendra Prasad can best be defined in part, I think, by his sense of honor, by his understanding of right and wrong. He was a fiercely loyal man, loyal to his family, loyal to his friends, and loyal to the values that he held and believed in so staunchly. Say not in grief that he is no more, but say in thankfulness that he was. Ladies and gentlemen, death is not the extinguishing of a light, but the putting out of the lamp, because the dawn has come. To Mrs. Uma Prasad, Kamil, Sunila, and Sandhya, and the rest of the family, I say on behalf of the entire community that we offer our heartfelt condolences, and together we offer our prayer. May the Lord grant strength and courage to the surviving members of Mr. Surendra Prasad's family. To all relatives and families, may the Lord grant you the ability to give comfort to the bereaved families. And finally, may the Lord grant everlasting peace to the departed soul of Mr. Surendra Prasad, a true gentleman. I say to Mr. Surendra Prasad, it has been a pleasure knowing a man of your stature. May the wind always be in your favor, and from the legal fraternity, I say we salute a gentleman and a scholar. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's not normally done, but today we celebrate the life and the times of Mr. Surendra Prasad, and in his honor, I'd like you to give him a big applause, please.
तू बेअंत अनंत है, लीला तेरी अपार। परम पिता परमात्मा ओ जग के करता, तू बेअंत अनंत है, लीला तेरी अपार। परम पिता परमात्मा ओ जग के करता, तू बेअंत अनंत है, लीला तेरी अपार। तू बेअंत अनंत है, लीला तेरी अपार। परम पिता के करतार, तू बेअंत अनंत है, लीला तेरी अपार। अद्भुत महिमा आपकी, करुणा में दाता, शरण पड़ेगी लाज रख, कर दो भव से पार। अद्भुत महिमा आपकी, करुणा में दाता, शरण पड़ेगी लाज रख, कर दो भव से पार। एक सहारा आपका, सकल सीख के, करुणा कर करतार है, जगत पिता जगदीश। एक सहारा आपका, सकल सिद्ध के ईश, करुणा कर करतार है, जगत पिता जगदीश। परम पिता परमात्मा, ओ जग के करतार, तू बेअंत अनंत है, लीला तेरी अपार। तेरा स्वभाव, तो निश्चय कर धार ले, तो निश्चल सद्भाव। नित्य शुद्ध और बुद्ध है, मुक्त तेरा स्वभाव, तो निश्चय कर धार ले, निश्चल सद्भाव। सत्य भाव के योग से हो आनंद अपार, तो हम नाद की बज उठे, मधुर मधुर झंकार। सत्य भाव के योग से हो आनंद अपार, तो हम नाद की बज उठे, मधुर मधुर झंकार। मधुर मिलन हो ईश से, बहे प्रेम रस धार, सहस्र कमल तल उठे, ओ अमृत संचार। मधुर मिलन हो ईश से, बहे प्रेम रस धार, सहस्र कमल तल उठे, ओ अमृत संचार। प्रभु शरण को ग्रहण कर, सहज समाधि साध, प्रभु प्यारे से प्रीत कर, ओम नाम महाराज। प्रभु शरण को ग्रहण कर, सहज समाधि साध, प्रभु प्यारे मेरी पंच गीत है तेरा तेरी अपार।
And then Mr. Bhuvandat, who has worked very closely with Mr. Prasad, has sent a message for this occasion. Mr. Surendra Prasad was a very strong advocate of doing everything legally correct. With his vast knowledge and experience in legal work, he was instrumental in reviewing the constitution of the Sabha of Fiji, and the annual general meeting of the Sabha approved the revised constitution at Pandit Vishnudeva Memorial College in June 1988. Mr. Prasad was the president of the Sabha at the time. In fact, record shows that he was president from 1980 to 1983 and then again from 1987 to 1995. This long stretch of time of his presidency further strengthened the implementation of the revised constitution as it gave him the opportunity to see it put it in practice. Perhaps it is worth noting that in this second period of the president of the office, bearers were Patron Justice Ravindra Patik, General Treasurer Shri Jainarayan Jokan, General Secretary Pandit Bhuvandat. Mr. Prasad steered his team very capably and gave us much cooperation, stability and progress of the work of the Sabha. He was a very able and strict chairman and ensured that discussions and debate in Sabha meetings remained of a high standard. It goes on to say, on another important matter that is satsangs of members of local Arya Samaj, Mr. Prasad gave a lot of emphasis that all members must attend weekly satsangs at the Samaj wherever they may be. He recommended that each Samaj should maintain a satsang register, which is to be signed by every member attending the weekly satsang meetings. And it should be held every week, and the register must be available for record of attendance to be noted in. And it goes on, an AP Sabha is saddened by his loss and prays that God guides his soul to salvation, and the family has the strength to bear the loss. The Sabha held its condolence gathering at Pandit Vishnudeva Memorial College last week, attended by the public and the students.
ना जाने कहाँ से भगवान सिवा तुम्हारे मुझ छोड़ कर अकेला सब दोस्त भी सिधारे साथी नजर की कोई साथी नजर की कोई साथी नजर की कोई.
We especially like to thank Pramod Rai for organizing this. But please remember the grieving families, especially Uma, Sunila, Camille and Sandhya and family, will need your support, continued support and care and kindness to help them through these difficult times. I hope you'll be there for them in whatever way you can. So and I'd also like to mention that Bhabhi, Uma, Sunila and Sandhya and the family have donated 1,000 Australian dollars to the Arya Samaj in Sydney. So a very big thank you, Dhanyabad and Bulabanaka, since we're all from Fiji.
Thanks, Sia, for your vote of thanks, and also for the kind donation of $1,000, which will be put into the renovation which is going on in the area here. And I will assure the family, Bhabiji, and the rest of the family, Sunila and Sandhya, Craig and other people, that will always be there. Because, by relationship, Bhaiya and Bhabhi, so we'll always be looking out for it, and Arya Samaj is meant for that. So I can assure you that the whole, you are part of this family, Arya Samaj family, as well as will continue to be the family, so support will be always there. And thanks for the patience here, for all the audience. I think you have done a wonderful job. Without you, we would not have been able to make this event as successful as it has been.
जीवन जाने कहाँ बैठा हुआ है वो इसको खुशी से जीना हो ये बात वो जान ले जीना हो ये बात वो जान ले मर्जी हो जो भगवान की हंस के उसे मान ले मर्जी हो जो भगवान की हंस के उसे मान ले बने तुम्हारी खुशी ये है वही सच्ची जाने कहाँ बैठा हुआ जिसका है वो की ये जिंदगी इस चीज का नाम है दो रोज की ये जिंदगी इस चीज का नाम है हर एक सुबह है बेखबर अनजान हर शाम शाम है, हर एक सुबह है बेखबर, अनजान हर शाम है, शाम है। किसको पता से कहाँ सांसों की जंजीर, जाने कहाँ बैठा हुआ लिखता है वो तस्वीर। किसको पता मुझे कहाँ सांसों की जंजीर, जाने कहाँ बैठा हुआ लिखता है वो तस्वीर। कैसे कोई जाने भला ख्वाबों की तारीफ, जाने कहाँ बैठा हुआ लिखता है वो तस्वीर। किस रंग से कैसे बनी जीवन की तस्वीर, जाने कहाँ बैठा हुआ लिखता है वो तस्वीर, लिखता है वो तस्वीर, लिखता